So today we have Doug and Marlys McCrae with us, and they're going to share their story. And we're going to cover a few areas. They've been with Sunrider for 20 years, and they have a lot of experience. And Marlys is going to talk about her background, and Doug will as well. And we're also going to cover labeling and some of the choices that they've had to make over the years where they had to choose their own path when it comes to advice from doctors. So it's going to be a very informative talk. So, Doug and Marlys, how did you guys get started? Where did your story begin?
Well, I guess for me, I was aware that there was some kind of problem that caused me to be overly sensitive to chemicals in the air. Almost anything that I could smell could cause a problem. And it was extreme enough that the first time I was 12 and I was visiting my uncle in the hospital and I started feeling really funny. And I thought it was just being a wimp at seeing him in hospital with tubes running here and there. But I finally tried to go outside and went blind before I got to the exit.
Wow.
And finally I went down a flight of stairs, found a panic bar on a door, pushed it and went outside and came to, I don't know how long after that, leaning over a railing over a 12-foot drop and just had no idea. So the future episodes of that kind that happened told me that, okay, there's some kind of a system problem here, but at least I could recognize the warning signs. So I never got quite so bad any of the future times, but there were 3 in total where I basically passed out in the hospital. So then there was an escalation in my health problems during my later part of my teaching career. And I became diabetic, but that didn't seem to explain the problems with the chemical sensitivities. So I did what we tell everybody they need to do. I did a lot of research. And fortunately, the internet was starting to come available with information like that. And I diagnosed myself with porphyria. So I went to the doctor and told him, this is what I think the problem is. There was only one test that he could do under BC regulations. So he prescribed that test and it came back positive. So it was pretty obvious that I had porphyria, which is a liver deficiency. The liver just can't detoxify chemicals in the usual way that a normal liver can. So it has to work harder and sometimes just can't cut it. So there were some really nasty situations that developed in my teaching career, but it basically brought me to the point where my health shut down totally. My brain just wasn't functioning properly. There were times when I could get it. If I was out of exposures for a while and that it would come back and I could read, but I couldn't really understand what I was reading lots of times. It was very limiting and it was very frustrating because the doctors had no idea. I'd go to a doctor, I'd tell them what the problem was. I'd say, I've got porphyria. And the typical thing was they'd say, how do you spell that? And that was my first clue that maybe they weren't too far up on this. And my background's different from Marlys's. She was a registered nurse. She was very much on the medical line. very suspicious of even chiropractors when I first met her. I came from a family that had found out that the medical profession wasn't cutting it, and they were doing a lot of studying already. I can remember when I was in my teens, my parents reading up on this and that and the other thing and trying different things. So it was sort of second nature for me to look for alternatives. And the only problem was I had been unable to find anything that would deal with the chemical sensitivities issue.
So that, can I cut in?
Yeah.
So we had tried a lot of different things. I was becoming more interested in the alternatives, and I knew that the doctors weren't able to help him. So one day we had tried quite a few products, but one day I was invited to a get together at a friend's house, and she had a girl from Salmon Arm there that was sharing about Sunrider. And I thought, well, I'm going to go and listen to her, see what she has to say. And the long and the short of it was that Rena talked about the Sunrider foods and how they nourished the body and brought them into balance. And that really clicked with me, that it was food and it would help bring the body into balance. And one of the chiropractors at one point had said to me, you know, you need to look for something that has a lot of live enzymes. And so Sunrider is live enzyme foods. So I picked up a package of New Plus and Cali and Quinery, and I brought home my bag. Doug had said before I left, don't sign up for anything. I came home with this bag and I said, you're going to eat this. And so anyhow, because he was at the point where he was really confused, his brain wasn't working that well, and I basically had to direct his meal planning, and so I got him started on the Sunrider products. And we didn't use all that much at the start. We used the Cali and a package of New Plus, and we started with only 3 capsules of Quinery. But you know, within a month, he wasn't going to tell anybody for a year because he was so skeptical. But within a month, I could see the changes starting, that his mind was starting to work better. And we ended up going down to Salmon Arm to meet some of these people, just to find out that they were really telling the truth about the products, and that they really did work. And that was a real eye-opening weekend, because family said, Doug is coming back to life. He's different. What are you doing? And that's where our journey started, there with him. For me at that time, I was struggling with a lot of digestive issues, and also a lot of emotional challenges. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try these foods too. And I did the basics, but then I added the Beauty Pearl, and that made a big difference for me. In fact, Doug always said, don't ever go off the Beauty Pearl.
I have one of those stories too.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we started, and I was not going to share it with anybody, but people kept asking, what's Doug doing? What's Doug doing? And so we ended up sharing it, and sometimes we'd have up to 25 people in our porch, and we'd have potlucks, and it was a great time, because at that point people were eager to learn, and they were willing to educate themselves with our help. And that is so important, is when you got a health challenge, you know, just to accept what the doctor says isn't always the wisest. You need to explore for yourself what the challenge seems to be, and if there's medications they want you on, you need to look and see what the side effects of those are. and then look at what you can do as an alternative. And that's what we had to do, because Doug could not take regular medications, and it drove the doctors crazy, because all they wanted to do was pull out their prescription pad and write a prescription. And I'd say, no, you can't do that. He can't take that. His body can't handle it. Well, they were very frustrated with us.
Yeah, I can remember one visit to a specialist. I counted the times that he grabbed his prescription pad, ready to write. 12 times he started to write a prescription, and we said, no, can't do that one. And the thing is, I wouldn't want to give people the wrong impression. We think it's very important to take charge of your own health. That doesn't mean you don't need doctors. They're a part of the team that we very much need. Mm-hmm. They can open up the route to testing. For acute care, they do wonderful things. I mean, I've had 2 heart attacks, I know. And there's just got to be a partnership. Now, it's not easy for some doctors to admit a patient into a partnership with them, but you got to do your homework. I can go in and I can tell them, this is why I can't take your drugs. This is why I will be doing an alternative. Will you still work with me? And if they're not willing to do that, then I have to move on to a different doctor. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we've done fairly well. We've had to kind of lay down the law with some of them, but once we've got an understanding, we've gotten along well.
Mm-hmm. The problems with the protocols that doctors have, especially like when you have heart condition or you have diabetes, the old way of doing it is they have a protocol. If you have a heart problem, they have 4 medications or 5 medications. They want you on all of them. Well, when they put him on them, he couldn't sit up because he couldn't get circulation to his brain because they lowered his blood pressure so low. And I said to the doctor, there's no use. Why would he take those medications when he can't even think or is not getting oxygen to his brain? We can't do that. And, well, the protocol says, and I would say, yes, but the protocol is made by the drug companies. And everybody's body is unique. We all have different needs, and our body takes care of things in different ways. And you can't just use a protocol for everything, because even with women, when they use a protocol, it's based on men's experience usually, and often there's too many, the drug dose is too high for them, and they have other kinds of side effects. But it takes time, and it wasn't always easy to stand up to doctors. Right now, we have a great doctor, and she says every time we come in, she says, I learned something new from you. And that's kind of a great relationship, because she's open to us sharing what works and what doesn't work. And I know our doctor in Williams Lake was quite good. He used to give us a rough time about it, but behind our backs, he would often tell others of our friends that he worked with, go check with Doug and Marlys and see what they're doing. But he couldn't recommend anything alternatively, because doctors at that time could lose their license for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I got a kind of a picture in my mind this morning that I think helps explain some of this. If you pass a playground that has a teeter-totter in it, it will be sitting with one end sitting on the ground. Mm-hmm. The only way that it gets to be level is if somebody is actively using it and getting the balance there. That's kind of the way it is with your health. It's got to be an active participation. Sunrider doesn't cure anything. None of the drugs in that really cure anything. What they do is get a balance of symptoms for that period of time. If you keep working at it, you can maintain the balance and life is good. But if you decide that, okay, I should be done that now, don't want to spend any money on that, don't want to take responsibility for that, one end is going to go back down and hit the ground.
Yeah.
And the Sunrider foods are very balancing. What I really like about them is they're very concentrated. They're a wide variety. The alternate doctors now are recommending dense foods. Well, that's what our Sunrider foods are. They're dense, whole foods that are full of nutrients. They're full of color. Those things are all important. They're high in antioxidants. They're high in polyphenols. All these things are what some of these doctors are now starting to realize, that they have to look at the root cause, not at just treat symptoms. And Sunrider is just amazing. It always, when I listen to some of these doctors, I think, wow, Sunrider's been doing that for 30 some years now. Dr. Chin has taught us this over the years, that we need to bring our body into balance. We need to nourish it, and we need to get rid of those toxins. And so we've been taught that. And to get rid of the toxins, we use certain foods that help nourish the kidneys and the liver so they can get rid of them. We make sure we get our exercise, so we're pumping our lymphatic system. Sunrider just fits in there so well. And that is why it works so well too, is because of the concentration, bringing the body into balance and getting rid of the toxicity.
Mm-hmm. So Marlys, you're always taking different courses. You're always telling me about them. And what happens usually partway through or at the end of the course, you're just like, wow, Dr. Chin's done that right from the beginning. Some new thing you're learning.
Yeah, it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's like with this whole thing with this virus now. They're saying strengthen your lungs, get rid of the mucus, build your body up, build up your resistance, build up your resilience. And, we've got Conco and we've got Alpha that really strengthens the immune system. Conco helps build the respiratory center. It helps get rid of the mucus. When you've got a cold, first thing I go to is the Conco to open up my airways, to get rid of that mucus.
Yeah.
And, just time after time, these things come up and I think, wow, Dr. Chin has already done that. And it's amazing what he has done.
And it's just so safe. And for those watching this that take prescriptions now, and they wonder, well, yeah, but I can't take herbs because I'm on medicine.
Yeah. We have hit that head on time and time again. Even when I was in the hospital in Vancouver for my
Heart surgery.
The doctors would say, if you're on heart medications, don't take this or don't take that or whatever. We marched in with our basket of Sunrider foods and put them on the table by the bed and said, this is my food. Don't mess with it.
We just constantly called it his food, and he took the New Plus and he took the Quinery and Fortune Delight and Sun Care right up to the time his fasting sign went up. And those were his first foods when he came back from the recovery room to his room. And then he was on the floor he was discharged on his 5th day after triple bypass. And the head nurse said, I don't know, I wish other people would.
Yeah. She said, I wish you'd teach other people how to get well so fast. And I said, I'd be glad to. But of course, then she started backing off.
Yeah.
So, it's not that you don't have some challenges when you're on Sunrider foods, but you're building up your body so it's stronger and it can handle more challenges as they come.
Mm-hmm. And we should mention that, again, and something I find myself mentioning a lot, and people usually go, oh, I didn't know that. And the fact that the Chinese took, 5,000 years to research these plants, and they separated them from food plants, medicinal plants, and poisonous plants. And Sunrider uses the food plants. That's your carrots and beans and koi fruit and Chinese yam. And herbs are just not herbs. It's not one just big category.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when the moment they hear herbs, a doctor often thinks of medicinal, and he doesn't want you touching them because it might change the response of the drugs. And
Right.
yet these are foods, and trying to get across to them, these are foods. So I think when you're talking to your doctor, you need to be careful in the language you use, that, these are foods, Chinese foods, not something medicinal.
That's right. So now let's just touch on the label issue. Is, it used to be there was no warnings on anything. And then all of a sudden, when the Natural Health Product Bill came into Canada, that all of a sudden everything got looked at under a microscope. And so they started putting warning labels on all our products, right? And people are like, what? And it's interesting between even the US and Canada as far as recommendations, and everything is different. So you'll have a product in the US that says take 2 at mealtime. And in Canada, it says take 10 at mealtime. And then there'll be a warning label on it saying if you have, suffer from heart issues, or it'll give you this big long list, don't take if you have any of that. We're like, what? That's why you take this food, is to support the heart. And what we've learned is that, Health Canada, they looks at that list of plants and they say, well, back in 1965, there was someone who had a reaction to that or something. And that could be, and they're limited in their experience really and their knowledge on these different plants, but I know they're doing the best they can. But the way that Dr. Chin works with it is he'll take this group of, let's say, quinine. There's 43 plants in there. And licorice root, for example, is one. And some people say, oh, yeah, I'm not sure about licorice root. But with these foods, every plant has been dealt with separately. It's had parts removed. It's been soaked in the teas of other plants. It's been baked. It's been this. It's been that. And after every plant has had its own unique way of being processed and enhanced, they put them together as a team. So these plants work together as a team in the body. So when you receive this nutrients in your body doesn't recognize it as that single plant anymore. It's a team. And that's a real uniqueness of what Dr. Chin does. He says it's like a good chef perfecting, a meal. So what would your thoughts be on that with your experience?
Well, I think it's great because when you look at a whole food and you make a recipe, and your recipe, when you put all those foods together, your end product is different than the isolated one thing. And he has done an amazing job in putting these recipes together. And like you say, with those labels, it's really difficult because people look at all the things if you look at all those things if you have these conditions, don't use it. Well, he's covered pretty well everything anybody might have. And so it just is very frustrating for people. And same thing with the numbers. The Beauty Pearl used to say 1 a day. Now I forget what it says. It's something ridiculous high. And same with Ease. We used to say 1, because it's so concentrated, we'd say use 1 or maybe 2 is usually enough. Well, now I think it says something like 8 on it the last time I looked. Well,
if you take 8 E's, you will notice the effect.
Yeah. Well, in Canada, our Sunrider foods are considered food supplements.
Yeah.
And so when Health Canada looks at all that, they say, well, to have your recommended daily allowance of iron and this and this and this and this, you would need 8 of that, and that's where these crazy numbers come from. So we're always having to re-educate people, say, well, all you need really is 3 a day or 4 a day, let's say, for quinine, and you can take more if you want. but all you really need is that. Just like you said, for Top-Ease and Joy, I find 1 a day is of each. It's just, you get great results. You don't need 8. That's great.
Yeah.
But you
So,
could give it to your child.
What we need to see is people smartening up and taking responsibility and realizing that just because the medical system provides a certain guideline or protocol or prescription doesn't mean that they don't have the responsibility to check into it. We have worked with a lot of people and find out that they're on drugs, but they have no idea what the side effects of those drugs are. They have no idea what they're doing in their body. Well, I had to get out of that mode many years ago. So when I went to the dentist and he prescribed an antibiotic, I went to the drugstore and picked it up, took it home, read the information, the full name of it and everything, and then did my own research. I found out that there were 2 ways that prescription could kill me. Because my situation was unique, and those prescriptions wouldn't work for me. So then I went back in to meet with the pharmacist, and I said, look, you people advertise that you're making sure that the prescriptions that you give us are suitable for us. I said, you dropped the ball on this one. And so I went through, told him how to spell porphyria, got him on track with some of those things. And when I explained why the particular antibiotic was dangerous for me, he said, yeah, I see what you mean, but he said, that rules out almost every antibiotic on the market. And I said, I know that. But I only know it because I did some homework.
Yeah.
Fortunately, nowadays, that information is available at the click of a mouse.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had to go back several times because they put something on his chart, but it didn't really cover what it needed to. So when he had to pick up something else again, he knew that they hadn't changed things, and he had to educate then that pharmacist as well. And I know a lot of people would struggle with that whole thing, but just being more aware of what medications you're taking and why you're taking them. And, you know, there's alternative pharmacists out there too that can help you work through some of these things. And they know what alternatives, and that's how we found when Doug had his heart attack and they put a stint in and they wanted him on blood thinners. They said, oh, it's fine. We looked up porphyria and it's fine. Well, within a couple of weeks, we knew it wasn't fine. And we had to do a bunch more research, and we found a pharmacist that she was from Germany, and so they do different things, and she put him on a different kind of enzyme which helps keep his blood from being clotting too easy. And so there are other resources out there that people you can talk to when you don't have the ability to do a lot of your own research yourself. But the Sunrider foods have been just so amazing. You know, they're convenient for traveling as well. We use the basics. When we have a special concern, we look at some of the things that we don't use all the time. Like I have a root canal challenge that acts up ever so often. I use extra alpha-20C every day just to keep my immune system dealing with that so it doesn't get carried away. Sometimes I have a real problem with circulation in my legs. I have prone to phlebitis in one leg, and Andrea advised me to use more LS, which is for circulation, and also Evergreen, which really had helped a lot. Doug being diabetic, circulation is a really major thing. And when he went on the New Plus, he started to warm up. And it was kind of funny because he suddenly started to feel warm. It was like, oh, are you having a hot flush type of thing? But then when we were introduced to the Viros and how Dr. Chin had made that and the benefits of the circulation, once he started on the Viros, his hands and feet were warm. And for a diabetic, that's huge.
Yeah.
But that really helped his circulation. Then there, as I mentioned, the anxiety and stress using the Beauty Pearl and ease and joy, they have really helped me. Heart palpitations. I've had challenges with heart palpitations in the past. And using Electrosport, just getting my mineral content up more. Those minerals are so important for our muscles, and our heart is a muscle. And I've used that with other people too, the Electrosport. It's interesting right now with this virus thing going around. They talk about washing your hands so often. Well, I was using the Dove soap in the bathroom and my hands were getting more chapped and sore. And I thought, oh, I've got Beauty Bar here and liquid soap, and they're all pH balanced for the skin. So within a couple days, my hands were back to normal with using them. It's amazing what a difference it is, because the conventional soap is very alkaline, and what you need is a slightly acidic soap for your skin. Another one of our favorites, which Doug is using right now because he slipped on the ice yesterday, is sports caps for our muscles and joints. They are an amazing food. When we travel, if we've got back discomfort or I'm out gardening, wow, they are just amazing in how well they work on that thing. So, you know, you learn these things over time. And
so I wanted you just to touch on your diabetes, Doug.
Okay.
And you've had this since you were how old? For how many years now?
1991.
I've had it since 1991, so it's 30
years.
About 30 years. And it was a challenge. The diabetic specialist that I had a consultation with right after I was diagnosed was a real godsend. He was somebody who had been in the field for 50 years. He knew as much about diabetes as anyone, but he was totally honest and would tell you, you have to be your own expert. You have to figure out what's going on. I can't tell what's going on in your body. And, you know, I'd come to him and I'd have a question. I'd say, I'm doing this and this and this. How come I'm not getting better results? And he'd say, I wish I understood diabetes. And he was sincere about it. But he also gave me basically permission to take responsibility for my health. And that meant that, okay, if my blood sugars are out of whack, I don't need to go to the doctor and ask to have a higher dose of insulin or something. I can do that.
He taught you how to do it, how to make the adjustments.
He taught me how to make the adjustments and so on. When I got onto Sunrider, my insulin requirements dropped by about 40%, almost immediately. And they stayed that way. It was consistently less insulin. And then when Marlys decided she needed to go gluten-free, and I said, well, I will too. When I went gluten-free, it caused, I think, about another 30% drop in insulin requirements.
Wow.
So nutrition has so much to do with it. And you can't just compensate with taking insulin or whatever drug they have you on in place of insulin. you have to take care of the nutritional needs.
Yeah.
When we took the gluten out of our diet, a lot of people will go and buy gluten-free things in the store, not realizing that they are loaded with sugar and fats, and they are not great for your body. We went more on a nuts and seeds base, which really helps level out your blood sugars more. And of course, the sun care is another food that really helps nourish the pancreas and adrenal glands, which are some of your major controls for your blood sugars. And so, yeah, the foods have made a big difference too in just keeping his body healthier. And like I mentioned, the circulation, because as a diabetic, circulation is a huge problem. I just mentioned that food poisoning episode, Jim, and just to show how fast these foods can work. And because of the concentration, when we were traveling, we had some quiche one night, and at it was 4 a.m. I heard him in the bathroom, and he had fainted. And he'd been sitting on the toilet, and he had diarrhea and vomiting from the food poisoning. Well, I always carry some Sunrider in my purse, and I right away, because of being diabetic, you're always concerned about their electrolyte balance. And so I gave him some very concentrated Fortune Delight, which has a lot of minerals in it, a tiny bit of New Plus, and Sunny Fresh. Sunny Fresh really nourishes the small bowel and seems to really work well for food poisoning. And just a touch of Vitafruit, because his blood sugars were probably low when he would faint on me. I was never quite sure just where he was at, and you don't want them to get too low. So, and because of the concentration, and you can get enough in without stimulating the vomiting reflux often. And that brought him around and stabilized him, and we were able to head out on our trip still later in the morning. And it's just amazing how fast these foods will work for people.
Mm-hmm. And you're the master at it, Marlys. Whenever we speak, you've always got a story to tell me about someone that had something quite serious, and you bring it back to life with a liquid 5 or.
Well, it's the best toolbox for taking charge of your health. I'm convinced there is no other collection of stuff, no other company in the world that makes nutritional products that give you the tools that Sunrider does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what the problem is. Sunrider has something that will help.
That's right, because it goes to the cause of the problem and starts building the problem. And it's a saying that I've said for many years, and it's not an insult, is that some people, a lot of people, they never connect the dots that their diet completely affects how strong their body is, how healthy it is, and how nutrition can help their body recover from whatever they're dealing with. And it's once you have that experience like what you guys have and myself, it just gives you that great confidence that when you travel, whatever you're doing, you've always got my Sunrider toolbox. I got my half a suitcase full of Sunrider, and then I know I can make it through anything.
Yeah, and you almost panic if you don't have a drawer full when you leave on a month or 2 month holiday. You got to have enough along to, and then all your things that you might need, and my purse is heavy all the time because I carry my little emergency kit in there all the time.
Yeah. So you mentioned your first trip to Salmon Arm. So what was that meeting? Was that a meeting at my house?
No, we were, we went actually to visit Marlys's mom at Sycamoose. And because I had some pretty good results already it seemed like it was coming from the Sunrider foods, I said to Marlys, let's see if we can arrange to talk to some other Sunriders just to make sure that this isn't a kind of an anomaly. Yeah. And so I phoned Rena and arranged to go to her house. Well, then when we got there, she had 4 or 5 other people there. Evelyn was there, and I don't remember all of them now, but we had the most hilarious evening. And I walked in the door, Vina started giving me Cali. And she never let my mug get empty all evening. I just kept drinking Cali, and she kept giving us a few other things. And this had been on top of several years of very low health. I wasn't expected to live. And here I found myself actually laughing out loud for the first time in probably 5 to 10 years, and just really enjoying the evening. So it was a real eye-opener.
Cali was so key. All the foods helped, but the Cali, it nourishes the liver, and it just did something to clear his mind. I mean, the liver is such an important organ, and but Cali, he's never without his Cali.
I'm hardly ever more than an arm's reach from my mug of Cali.
Yeah.
So
I always tell people, like, if they're off, if they're depressed or anxiety, or it's like, yeah, your liver's a little bit off. What have you been doing to your liver, right? Get some Cali and Fortune Delight. I know. People are tired of hearing us Sunriders always talk about it, but it's the truth. It's our toolbox. We know we can control the outcome of how we feel.
And we need to remind people too that Cali and Fortune are green tea, and green tea is all the rage now in working even with cancer patients and any inflammation type thing. They are really promoting green tea because of the high anti-inflammatory effect of green tea, and also the polyphenols and antioxidants in it. So it's being recognized. Green tea is recognized worldwide, and yet Dr. Chin has made it very concentrated for us.
So it's concentrated, and he's also removed the tannic acid that you'll get in green tea, right? And there's all some caffeine. So he's removed all that to perfect the formula. And that formula is what, 1,500 years old, something like that. It was originally created for people to meditate better, to clear the mind. So anyways, but thank you so much. This has just been so informative, and have a fabulous day. We'll talk to you another time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.